Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are diving deep into Cang Yuan Tu,
Okay.
a Cangxia novel that's got everyone talking.
Right.
We're going to unpack some seriously intense power dynamics,
Oh, yeah.
the myth of legacy, and the human cost of being a pawn in a much bigger game.
For sure.
It's going to get pretty heavy, but stick with us because this one will really make you think.
Definitely.
So what's so fascinating about this novel? What makes it stand out from other Cangxia stories?
Well, I think what makes Cang Yuan Tu so captivating is how it uses two characters, Meng Chuan and Ning Yibu,
Okay.
to explore these themes in such a complex and kind of heartbreaking way.
Yeah, let's start with Meng Chuan. He's got this incredible array of abilities, 5 to be exact.
Yeah.
But instead of just listing them out, I'm curious, what makes these abilities so significant in understanding his character?
Well, it's interesting because his abilities really represent different facets of his power.
Okay.
Like take his divine demon bloodline, for example.
Yeah.
It gives him this raw, almost berserker-like strength.
Wow. But it comes at a cost. Oh. Leaving him completely drained afterward.
So it's not just about brute force.
Exactly.
It's about strategy and knowing when to use that power effectively.
Yes.
Kind of reminds me of the saying, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. And then you have his Thunder Flash ninefold technique, these lightning-fast blade strikes
Wow.
that are incredibly precise and calculated.
Okay.
It's not just about speed, but about control and mastery over his movements.
So his abilities really emphasize this idea of calculated power, not just raw strength.
Absolutely. And then there's a shadowless step,
Okay.
which allows him to teleport.
Oh, wow.
It gives him this incredible tactical advantage, allowing him to move swiftly and strike with precision.
I'm already imagining the fight scenes. Must be pretty epic.
Oh, definitely. But then you have the Cang Yuan scroll fragment,
Okay.
which gives him glimpses into the future. This ability adds a whole new layer of complexity to his character. I was just thinking about that. Knowing the future sounds amazing at first,
Yeah.
but wouldn't it also be incredibly burdening?
Right.
I mean, imagine the pressure of seeing potential dangers, but not knowing how to prevent them.
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
It gives him foresight, but it also forces him to make these difficult decisions with incomplete information.
Right.
He's constantly walking this tightrope between fate and free will.
That's a good point. That actually ties in nicely with his final ability,
Okay.
the Crimson Blood Saber.
Yeah.
It's not just his strongest weapon.
Right.
It's one that literally evolves alongside him.
That's right. The Crimson Blood Saber is more than just a weapon.
Okay.
It's a symbol of Meng Chuan's self-made journey.
I see.
It embodies the idea that true power is earned, not inherited.
Right.
It's a testament to his dedication, his constant push to become stronger.
So out of all these incredible abilities, the Crimson Blood Saber stands out because it represents something deeper about his character, his drive to forge his own path. It's fascinating how the author uses these abilities to symbolize larger themes of self-determination and growth.
It's a brilliant way to weave those ideas into the narrative.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what happens to someone who is denied that opportunity for growth, for self-discovery?
That brings us to Ning Yibu, our second character.
Okay.
Now, he's introduced as this powerful protector watching over Meng Chuan,
Right.
but it doesn't take long for things to get complicated.
Yeah, Ning Yibu's story is a masterclass in how good intentions can be twisted into something much darker.
Yeah.
He's essentially used by the Black Sand Abyss,
Yeah.
this powerful and shadowy organization to
Right.
keep Meng Chuan in check.
So instead of being a protector, he's more like a tool being used by someone else.
Unfortunately, yes.
Wow.
His loyalty and impressive abilities are leveraged to control Meng Chuan's path,
Okay.
even if that means putting Ning Yibu in harm's way.
Yeah, that's just heartbreaking. It's like he's being forced to sacrifice his own well-being for someone else's destiny. It's
What exactly is the Black Sand Abyss trying to achieve by controlling Meng Chuan?
Well, they're obsessed with something called the Cang Yuan legacy,
Okay.
which is essentially a myth, a fabricated lineage designed to manipulate and control various sects.
Wait, so this Cang Yuan legacy isn't some epic inheritance or ancient prophecy. It's all made up.
Precisely.
Wow.
And the leader of the Black Sand Abyss, the Holy Master, uses this fabricated legacy to consolidate power and unify different factions under their control.
Wow, the layers of deception are already running deep.
Right.
And it gets even more complicated when we learn that even Meng Chuan's own mother is involved in this scheme.
Right.
She's not just a concerned parent, she's the holy maiden of the lunar sanctuary and complicit in the Black Sand Abyss's plan.
Yes.
Talk about betrayal.
It makes you question who you can trust in this world, right?
It really does.
Even family ties are twisted into instruments of manipulation.
And to make matters worse, Ning Yibu is also being played by another powerful faction called Yuan Tu Mountain.
They use him as a double agent,
Exactly.
essentially exploiting his loyalty for their own gain.
This is where the psychological impact of Ning Yibu's situation becomes truly apparent.
Okay.
He's constantly given this false sense of belonging and importance by both the Black Sand Abyss and Yuan Tu Mountain,
Right.
only to be discarded once they've gotten what they need from him.
It's like he's being constantly pulled in different directions, never allowed to truly be his own person.
Exactly.
No wonder he starts to unravel, losing his sense of self amidst all this deception and manipulation.
His story raises so many questions about the nature of loyalty, duty, and how easily individuals can be dehumanized within these power structures.
And what makes this even more tragic is the genuine bond between Ning Yibu and Meng Chuan.
Right.
They truly care for each other,
Right.
but even that bond can't break the chains of the system they're trapped in.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes even the strongest connections can be strained or broken by external forces beyond our control.
For sure. It's fascinating how these two characters, Meng Chuan and Ning Yibu, represent such contrasting approaches to power.
Yeah.
Meng Chuan actively forging his own path, while Ning Yibu is tragically swept along by forces beyond his control.
This contrast really gets to the heart of what Cang Yuan Tu is exploring. It's not just a story about good versus evil. It's a deep dive into the very nature of power and how individuals navigate its complexities.
So for our listeners who are maybe just getting into Jiaozi or even for seasoned fans, what would you say are some of the key themes that Cang Yuan Tu tackles through these characters?
Well, one of the most prominent themes is the price of power.
Okay.
Both Meng Chuan and Ning Yibu pay a price for the power they wield, but in vastly different ways. Meng Chuan, with his ambition and drive, constantly pushes himself to his limits.
Right.
We see this with his divine demon bloodline.
Okay.
The physical toll it takes, the exhaustion he endures each time he taps into that raw strength.
But it's not just physical, right? The Cang Yuan scroll fragment.
Right.
Those visions of the future also seem to weigh heavily on him.
Sure.
Wouldn't that knowledge, the burden of seeing potential dangers, be a heavy price to pay?
Absolutely. The psychological impact of those visions is immense.
Yeah.
He's constantly wrestling with the weight of knowing what might happen, the potential for tragedy, and the pressure to make choices that could alter the course of events.
Oh, wow.
It's a constant battle against fate.
It makes you wonder if knowing too much can be just as dangerous as knowing too little.
That's a great point. And then there's the Crimson Blood Saber.
Okay.
It represents his strength, his growth.
Right.
But it's also a tool of destruction. Wielding that kind of power, being forced to take lives, to make life or death decisions, that takes a toll as well.
So in a way, Meng Chuan's power,
Yes.
both his abilities and his ambition, come bundled with these burdens,
Exactly.
these sacrifices that he has to make along the way.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with Ning Yibu.
Okay.
He's not driven by personal ambition, but by a sense of duty, of loyalty.
Right.
And it's that very loyalty that ultimately leads to his exploitation.
Right.
The price he pays is his freedom, his sense of self.
It's tragic how he's denied the chance to forge his own path,
Yeah.
to discover his own potential because he's constantly being used as a pawn in someone else's game.
And that brings us to another crucial theme that the novel explores. Free will versus determinism.
Okay.
How much agency do these characters really have in a world where fate and prophecy seem to hold so much sway?
That's a question that's been on my mind as well.
Yeah.
On the surface, it seems like both Meng Chuan and Ning Yibu are bound by forces beyond their control.
Right.
Meng Chuan with those visions of the future.
Yeah.
And Ning Yibu being manipulated by the Black Sand Abyss and Yuan Tu Mountain.
Exactly.
But is it really that black and white?
I think the novel is asking us to consider the nuances of free will within these seemingly predetermined situations. Take Meng Chuan, for instance.
Okay.
He's aware of potential futures, But he doesn't blindly follow those visions.
Right.
He adapts, he makes choices,
Right.
he fights to shape his own destiny, even within the constraints of what he's seen.
So it's not about changing the future.
Right.
It's about choosing how you respond to it.
Exactly.
Taking ownership of your actions, even when it feels like fate has already dealt the cards.
Precisely. And it's a crucial distinction.
Okay.
He's not a passive observer. He's actively participating in the shaping of his own reality.
And what about Ning Yibu? He seems far more trapped,
Yeah.
with much less control over his own life.
Right.
Does he have any agency at all in this situation?
It's a complex question.
Yeah.
He's certainly a victim of manipulation and exploitation.
Right.
But even within those confines, there are moments where he pushes back, where he makes choices that defy the roles others have forced upon him.
Okay.
He might be a pawn, but he's not a mindless one.
So even in the most restrictive systems, even when it feels like you have no options,
Right.
there's still a spark of agency, a glimmer of choice that can't be completely extinguished.
That's the subtle but profound message the novel seems to be conveying.
I see.
True freedom might be an illusion, but the capacity for choice,
Yeah.
even within limitations, is what makes us human.
This is making me think about all the ways we're influenced by systems and structures in our own lives.
Right.
How often we might feel like pawns in a game we don't fully understand.
And that's the power of Cang Yuan Tu.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy epic, but it resonates deeply with the human experience. It challenges us to examine the power dynamics at play in our own lives, to question the choices we make,
Right.
and to consider how much agency we truly have.
We've talked about the price of power and the complexities of free will,
Right.
but there's another theme that we can't ignore,
Okay.
the human cost of ambition.
Yeah.
Ning Yibu's story in particular highlights the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition and the systems that enable it.
His entire arc serves as a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
He's dehumanized, reduced to a mere tool by those seeking to consolidate power.
Right.
He loses his sense of self, his purpose, and ultimately his life, all because he was caught in the crosshairs of someone else's ambition.
It's a harsh reminder that ambition,
Yeah,
while often seen as a positive trait, can have a dark side,
for sure.
especially when it comes at the expense of others.
And the Cang Yuan legacy itself, this fabricated lineage,
Right.
becomes a symbol of that corrupt ambition.
Right.
It's a tool of manipulation used to justify cruelty and control.
So in a way, the novel is asking us to consider not just the price of power,
Right.
but also the price of ambition.
Exactly.
The collateral damage that can occur when individuals are treated as expendable in the pursuit of a larger goal.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it?
It really is.
And it makes you question the systems and structures that perpetuate these cycles of exploitation.
It's heavy stuff, for sure. But it's also incredibly insightful. It makes you want to examine the world around you with a more critical eye. Okay, so we've covered some pretty intense themes today. The price of power,
Yeah,
the illusion of free will,
for sure.
and the human cost of ambition.
Yes.
It's a lot to unpack, but it feels like there's a bigger picture here that Cang Yuan Tu is trying to paint.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The novel, through the contrasting journeys of Meng Chuan and Ning Yibu,
Okay.
presents us with two sides of the same coin, forcing us to confront the different ways power manifests and the consequences that ripple outward.
So it's not a simple story of good versus evil,
No.
but a more nuanced exploration of how individuals interact with power structures, whether they're shaping them or
Right.
being shaped by them.
Exactly. Meng Chuan, despite facing incredible challenges and setbacks, ultimately embodies the idea of self-determination.
Oh.
He constantly hones his skills, pushes his limits,
Right.
and makes conscious choices to shape his own destiny.
He's a testament to the power of resilience and the idea that even in a world full of manipulation and hidden agendas, we can choose to forge our own paths.
Absolutely.
But then we have Ning Yibu, whose story takes a much darker turn.
Yeah. Ning Yibu's arc is a cautionary tale,
Yeah.
highlighting the very real danger of blindly following orders, of sacrificing your own identity and agency for a cause that ultimately betrays you.
Right.
He becomes a tragic example of how easily individuals can be dehumanized within these power structures.
It's a stark reminder that systems, no matter how well-intentioned they might appear, can have devastating consequences on individuals,
Yeah.
especially those who are most vulnerable to exploitation.
And the Cang Yuan legacy itself,
Um.
this fabricated lineage that drives so much of the conflict,
Right.
serves as a powerful symbol of that corrupt ambition. It's a reminder that narratives, even those built on lies, can be incredibly potent tools of manipulation and control.
So for our listeners who are now pondering all of this, what would you say is the ultimate takeaway from Cang Yuan Tu? What can we learn from the contrasting fates of Meng Chuan and Ning Yibu?
I think the novel is posing a challenge to each of us. Are we, like Meng Chuan, actively shaping our destinies, making conscious choices even in the face of adversity? Or are we, like Ning Yibu, allowing ourselves to be swept along by external forces, sacrificing our agency for a false sense of security or belonging?
It's a powerful question.
Yeah.
And one that transcends the fantasy setting of the novel.
Right.
It makes you consider the ways in which power dynamics operate in our own lives.
Yeah.
The systems that influence our choices, and the moments where we might be compromising our own values or beliefs.
It's a call to be more aware, to question the narratives that we're told, and to actively participate in shaping the world around us. It's a reminder that true power lies not in domination or control, but in self-awareness, critical thinking, and the courage to forge our own paths.
We've talked about the price of power, the illusion of free will, the human cost of ambition, and the deceptive nature of narratives.
Yes.
Cang Yuan Tu certainly packs a punch, both in terms of its action-packed plot and its thought-provoking themes.
It's a novel that stays with you long after you've finished reading it, prompting you to examine the world around you with a more critical eye and to consider the choices you make each and every day.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into Cang Yuan Tu. It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
And I hope our listeners have enjoyed exploring these complex themes with us today.
Remember, the next time you encounter these ideas of power, ambition, and free will, whether in a novel, a movie, or even your own life, take a moment to reflect on the lessons we've discussed today. Ask yourself, who holds the power? Who is paying the price? What choices can you make to shape your own destiny?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.